right, and we're back. So now we have our first presentation of the day for Autodesk Smoke 2013. For those of you who've been paying attention, this is a major release we're announcing here. Lots of new stuff in here and a lot of things people have been asking for, including a different price. So you definitely want to check that out. That one, I think, was one of the big ones people were asking for. I want to use it, but a little less cost. So today we have Ken LaRue, the man I like to call the bravest or most scared man on the booth today, because he gets to demo this major announcement of product, but we have to remember that he is demoing an alpha piece of software here, so he is really out there on a limb. So Ken, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm here to show you Smoke 2013. A little bit about what is Smoke 2013, why we are so excited about it, why we are really promoting it, and we got it all over the place. We got it on 2 pods over there, we got 2 pods over there, we've got it at AJA, we've got it at B&H, it's all over the place. We went and introduced Smoke to the Mac platform about 2 years ago or so, and we know Smoke has phenomenal compositing special effects tools. Although I know there are people who use Smoke for editing, a traditional editor, such as someone coming from Final Cut, coming from Avid, would not feel comfortable stepping into the old Smoke. Editing was done very differently. So we went and did tests. We literally sat down, groups of people in rooms in LA and Montreal, had cameras pointing down on their hands, cameras all around them, put them in front of Smoke and said, edit, and didn't tell them what to do. And we listened to every pain point they gave us. They said, this isn't how I would do this. This isn't how I would do this. And we went back to the drawing board, and we created this. We rewrote the entire Smoke editorial workflow to be more familiar to what you, if you are a traditional editor, what you do right now. So with that background, understand that here my UI is set up. I have a very traditional source and record or source and timeline area. My source area is over here. I have bins that are all along the left-hand side. I can create my folders. I can drag folders from the Finder and drop them right into my project, and the folders will all be built and the footage will all be imported in. I can go over here on the left-hand side, set my in and outs. I can drag my files directly from here and bring them down into my timeline. It'll show me where they're going to be added. It's going to be all this stuff that you typically do in other applications. Our goal was for you to be able to open this app and just start editing in 10 minutes. And I think we really have done that. And sitting on the pods over there, I was sitting with one gentleman, and he's like, can you do this? And I said, well, how would you do that in Final Cut? He said, I would do it this way. I said, okay, let's do it. I show him exactly how we did it here. He's like, that's exactly what I would have done. So we've really made it much more intuitive. But the other thing, remember, we didn't take away the power of what has made Smoke so awesome. I'm trying to think of the word, awesome over all these years. We didn't want to take away something. And the other thing that's really important about this release is we added something called ConnectFX. It's a full node-based compositing environment that's right in your timeline. So let's start off just looking at some of the really cool power of Smoke inside the timeline. I also want to say thank you to Oakley. They're our client and our friends for letting us use this footage and let us use their project they built in Smoke for our demo here. So always give credit where credit is due. So let's go down my timeline here, and I've got great workflow. You can zoom in on your clips and so on. There's all different functionality, all hotkeys. Oh, by the way, all Final Cut users, if you want to use Final Cut hotkeys, go into Preferences and turn them on. We've already got them in there for you. If you want to customize your hotkeys, change anything you want. I'm familiar with the Smoke hotkeys, so I use those. But if you want Final Cut, it's waiting for you. It's right in there. Okay, so I'm going to go through and scrub through some clips here, and we have a couple of things we want to focus on. First of all, I've got this clip of this gentleman who's golfing, Rory I forgot his last name. I'm sure all the golfers know who he is. But I want to do some color correction. It's a little flat, and also the other thing is the color sky, I don't like it. I don't like his skin tone. I would like it to look more like a clip over here where it's a little brighter. It's got a little more color enhancement to it. So let's take the color information from this clip and put it on that clip. So to do that, I come over here, I'm going to tap to the side. This allows me to change my view on what I'm looking at. Right now I'm looking at the source and sequence. When I choose triptych, we switch to a 3 view. And what's great about this is I can tell this view over here, I want you to look at this frame. I can tell this one over here, I want you to look at this frame. And the same for the center. And everything in the UI is totally customizable as far as adjusting sizes and moving things around as you would expect. So I can minimize that one and make this one a little bit larger because I want to focus on this. You can also zoom in on each one of them. Each one can play back independently and so on. So with a clip, how we add effects, how we add tools to our clips in here is you select it. You can either right-click or you can just come to the FX button and click this, and now we have our tool ribbon that comes out. Now, by default, we have this set of tools that are the bread and butter for your editorial workflow. You've got your time warp, your resize, your text, color correction, and axis, and other tools such as this. If I choose color correction, I add the color correction tool immediately to it. Now, the workflow is you get a subset of all the parameters for whatever tool you've applied or what you're working on right inside your timeline. But it's important to understand that every single tool you add has a full editorial area you can step into, and that's what I want to get to. I could come in here and make adjustments. Oh, I applied the color correction to the wrong clip. That's okay. Let's go over to this clip, which is where I want to put the color correction. So I'm going to come here really quickly and just delete the one that was on that one, and I'll select the one I wanted to apply it to, and we go and add our color correction tool. So what I was trying to say is I obviously can make adjustments right here on the timeline, but if I want to access all the tools the color correction offers, there's this button that says Enter Editor. Click on that. You now step into the full color correction tool. Now there's two main color correction tools that ship with Smoke. And remember, everything I'm showing you here is already in the software. It's not like there's plugins that I'm showing you or anything. Everything I show you is in the software as of right now. I have this tool called the color corrector. This is the Autodesk color corrector. It's a great color corrector. It's got histogram, curves, ranges. It's got all these different controls, but I need selective color correction. So I'm going to switch over, where it read CC, to what's called the color warper. I can toggle between them very easily. Now, the power of this color correction tool, besides the fact that it works with my color tablets and everything else, is that it has keying and matte controls built right in it. But at first, I'm going to just do something and do it wrong to show you why you would want to have that. So if I want to match the color correction of the sky onto this sky, I come down, I just click Select, I select this sky, I click Select, and I select that sky. The color correction for the sky worked, but it also changed his skin tone. It changed his shirt. It changed his hat. And I don't want that. I don't want to color correct everything. I just want to color correct the sky. So let me undo that. So what we have is what's called selectives. So here I'm working on the master. Watch what happens. I switch to selective. It goes great because now it's asking me to pick a custom color that you want to color correct. So if I pick custom color and click and drag, we're creating a matte. I'm basically controlling what the color correction tool is going to affect. And what's cool is we can look at the matte to make sure it's what I want. Well, he's wearing a blue shirt, okay, and then we're trying to color correct blue sky. So it's going to pick some of the blue up. It's also, we've got a little corruption happen over here. This area down here, this is my actual keyer right there. And I can go in and finesse and fine-tune that, but what I like to do is use these tools they offer me right here. There's tolerance, softness, plus, and minus. So if I leave this at tolerance, and I click sample, come in here and just drag, we now add to it. So I'm adding more of the blue sky to it. Now we want to get rid of what's in the blue shirt, so I'll switch this to be what's called softness. So now I click sample, and I just click and drag, click sample, and click and drag into view, and we start to pull that away. So now I've really finessed and fine-tuned my matte, okay? Let's go back and look at the result. And if I come in here and just for fun, just to make sure you understand, we've totally isolated the sky back from the guy, okay? So I could try, again, to rematch that myself, but let's do what we did earlier. I take select, I click the blue sky, I take select, I click the blue sky. Now we've color corrected the sky to match the previous clip without affecting his skin tone, his shirt, or his hat. Now let's take a look at his skin. In the clip on this side, he looks a little pale, if you will. On the clip on the other side, he's got a really nice tan. So let's go and take this skin tone over here and match it to this one. So I'm just going to go to frame where I see his bottom leg. There we go. And I'll zoom in so I can do this a little easier. That's good. And over here, we'll zoom in too. So now I want to do another selective, but I want it just to be the skin. So I switch from selective 1 to selective 2. And we'll do the same process. I'm pick custom, click and drag across the skin, so we isolate that. Switch back to the master. Let's come now and do the same thing. I click select, I select his skin tone, I click select, I select some skin tone, and boom. Wow, he's got a sunburn now. Now, what's great is, even though I probably grabbed too much there, you can now come back here and just dial this down, make the adjustment. So if the color correction gets you 99% there, fantastic. You can then go and alter and change every part of it. So let's go exit back to our timeline, And now what we'll do is I want to go back to my 2-view layout, and I want to go and take the color correction that I just applied to the previous clip and put it on this clip. So to do that, it's as simple as just selecting that color correction, pick it up, I drag and I drop it. If you notice, his skin tone changed, but the sky didn't. Well, the reason why it didn't change is because the color we sampled in that previous clip is very different from this sky. But what's easy to do is go back to that color correction that we just applied on there, step in, and if you remember, that was selective 1 that we pulled the sky on. I go to selective 1, and I just click in the screen, and now we've repurposed, we created a new matte, took the color correction that we applied before. So here are some phenomenal color correction tools and workflow that's right inside your timeline. The other thing that's really cool is the ability to create what we call gap effects. Let's say I want to do a vignette effect, a color correction to affect all 3 of these clips, and I don't want to copy and paste them. I want it to affect all of them. So to do that, we have unlimited layers, unlimited audio inside. There's tons of audio tools and so on. But I'm just going to come here and select these 3 clips. And then using a hotkey, I'm going to set the area I want to put an effect in. So it's empty, but now I can just start throwing tools on this thing, and then it's going to affect everything underneath it. So for example, we go over here to our color correction. I add a color correction tool. And if I start to scrub my color correction tools, you can see we're going to affect this. But look, it's affecting all the clips, okay, because it's above them all. That's not the effect I want, so let me undo that. What I'll do is just kind of drag this down. I'll take this. I want to make this kind of a dark because I want to create a vignette effect over all 3. So now that I got the color correction, let's add another tool on top of that. So we just keep building the tools in my gap area. So if I go back to the effects, I come here and I say, give me a wipe. Now, just so you understand, the default for the wipe is to wipe whatever layer you're applying it to the underlying layer. And really what it is a mask. And I've got different patterns. There's a whole different things you have in here. In fact, if we go into the patterns, I always love showing we have all these different patterns for your wipe. In fact, the #1 pattern used by all of you, I'm sure, is the heart. So now we've got this beautiful heart that's animated. I'm joking. That's not what we're going to use. But if we step into the editor for the wipe, I just want to stress that all the wipes are masks that have been created to create a wipe effect for you. So if I came in here and I wanted to use the heart, but I can animate it, I can track it, I can totally manipulate it, but I don't want to use the heart, so I'm just going to delete that. Now we'll go back to our first frame, and we turn on an option to see the effect. I want to create my own mask. So that's what's great about this. I choose Add. In fact, I can hold a hotkey and just draw the mask if I wanted to, but I'll just make a nice little oval shape such as this. And when I'm done, we'll see that we got the effect done. I can obviously animate or adjust that. Let's switch it to be the outside. Now, of course, we have your standard offset. You know, we can go and feather this inside and out. But what's great about Smoke is it offers something called advanced gradients. I switch my softness to be advanced gradients. Now you'll notice that I have independent control for the fall off and the softness of your mask and every single control point. I can also do cool things like switch this to be a scale tool. And then if I region select everything, I can come in here and start to scale. Well, if I region select everything, I can scale this. I can manipulate all these control points at once. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I would obviously finesse that a little bit more. But the point is these gap effects are awesome because I can continue to apply it on top. So far, I've been showing you pretty much everything you typically do inside your timeline. We're going to start getting a little trickier here because this, I'll scrub over to another clip. This is a great example. When we were working on these demos up in Montreal, we were talking about how clients say stuff to you that sometimes you just shake your head. One client said, can you make it 10% more happy? Can you give the talent more room? Can you just make the shot better? I don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it. Can you just fix it? The point is, Smoke gives you this tool set that will allow you to do anything you want without having to go to other applications. And this was one of those shots. It was like, yeah, it's a good shot, but we need something more dynamic. Maybe I want to have the word Oakley in the sky behind him floating around. Maybe I want to have lights coming out. Or I want a light beam that shoots up from back. I don't have to go to other applications to do that. I have all these tools right here in Smoke. So let's kind of build that. So I'm going to go to this first frame, and what we'll do is I want to create another copy of this to start compositing. So I'll click this up, and I'll drag this up, and I'll just create a second copy. So now we've got two versions of the same clip stacked up, and I've purposely left an empty area in the middle where I can put some text tools. So let's go back over here. I'm going to add another tool to this top clip. I'll add an axis. Now, as I said earlier, the axis tool is a very powerful tool where you have rotation, you have all different, axis controls, Z space and all this. But you go into the axis, you're going to get a lot more tools because a lot of it's hidden inside the editor. When I step into it, First of all, I want to make sure you understand that once we apply the axis to this, this layer is no longer flat 2D. It is actually a 3D layer. And what I mean by that is I can take my flat image right here, and I can say, I want you to actually be extended by cubics. I can go in here and I can subdivide this image. I can start selecting control points such as this, and I can then bend and manipulate. I'm going to rotate. You can switch it. So now I've actually modeled my layer, okay? It's no longer a flat image. Let me go back here. I really don't, that's just eye candy I want to show you. I don't need it to be, I'm going to set this to be a flat image. Okay. What I want to do, though, is start to pull a key on this. So we want to do a luma key and some masking. And that's why this axis tool is great, because it has all that built in there. If I go and click the keyer, we step into our keyer, and we have 7 different keyers available to you. You'll see them all lined up over there. And in fact, in the next demo, we're going to be showing after this right here on stage, we'll look at chroma keying, okay? So I'm just going to do a real quick lumens key. So if I come in here and I take a look at my mat, and I just start choking my luma key down such as this, okay? Finesse that a little bit. Well, you know, I can sit there and work as much as I want, but maybe you want to use masks to really isolate things like the greens, right? So let's go back and look at the front, and I'll go over here and I'll just go to my mask tool. So right here inside the keyer, inside of there, I just click add, and I draw another mask just like you did with the wipe. And this one's going to be pretty simple. Come around here like so. I create my mask. Now there is a camera movement happening. It's kind of slight. Let me fix my mask a little bit. It's slight, but I want my mask to obviously follow that, right? I could animate it by hand, or I can come in here, turn on my scaling option, and step into our tracker. The tracker inside of Smoke is an extremely powerful tracker. I can just start positioning this in different spots. Now there's 2 tracker points because of the fact that I chose to do the scale. The first one's going to do your X and Y position. The second one is going to analyze any scaling that takes place and apply it to your mask. So when I return back, you can see my mask has been animated perfectly for me. That was simple. Let's say you had something a little more complicated. Let's say we have to create a mask around his legs. So if I scrub through, you see we got all this movement, okay? So let's just do that quickly. I'm just going to come in here, choose add, and we'll create a mask around his legs such as this. I'm not even going to be overly concerned about having too many control points, because the powerful thing about the tracking tools is I can not only track a mask as an object, I can track every control point. And what I mean by that is by region select all my control points, and I step into the tracker, I have a control point for every single control point of the mask. So let's go do this. Let's gang our tracker boxes, and let's click Analyze. Let's let Smoke do the work. So it's taking a whopping 10 seconds to go through 75 frames. I've got 11 tracker markers going, and now my mask is being rotoed and animated automatically for me. Think of how much time this is saving you. So I step back out here, I scrub through. I can obviously fine-tune that a little bit if I wanted to, but that is just what's amazing about this tracker tool inside of Smoke. So let's go back. I want to go, well, I forgot, let's go to the keyer. I also want to invert my key, so let's just do that really quickly. I want to go into the keyer and go to my keying tools and choose invert. Let me look at my mat to see what I got. That's what I want, okay. So let's go back to the timeline now. Click return, and let's go back out here. So now in the timeline, remember what I did. I built that layer, so if I turn off the bottom layer or select this top layer and I start to scale it, you can see that we've isolated him on one level, right? So that's where we now want to put the text. Because we did that, we'll be able to put text in this bottom layer right here. So again, I'm going to use my gap effect. I go here to my text tools. I choose text, and I'm just going to step into the editor right away, and we'll just click right in the screen, and we'll type in the word Oakley. There's a lot of stuff on this desk up here. I don't want backspace. So the text tools itself, we could probably sit here and demo this for a couple hours with all the control you have. Actually, that's good. Let's go into center this. So you can change the font. You can all the standard stuff you would associate. You can put your text on a path. You can put underlines. You can do shadows. You can animate each individual text object by itself. There's presets for animations, but this is all I need. I just want the word Oakley. So we step back out to the timeline, and if I go back to the top view, you can see because we have it in the middle, we've got a pretty cool effect, right? So this is better already. But it's not enough. This is where you run into a wall. When you're doing layer-based compositing, you are limited as to how those layers can actually interact. I can put masks, I can put luma keys, but I can't actually have them working together. Here's where we're going to get excited, okay? I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to select these 3 layers. Now I go to my tool set. I have this thing called ConnectFX. You ready? I choose ConnectFX. We step into a full node-based environment, and it recreates what I was working on for me automatically with what's called an action tool. Let me go to a 2-view layout so we see here's our end result, and over here I'm going to have my schematic. So I'm not sure if you've ever used a node-based compositing, but just understand all it is unlimited amount of tools you continue to build and connect. Think about connect the dots. So perfect example. I'm going to come in here to my tools and look at all the tools I got down here. It's unbelievable the amount of tools you get. I want to do a special stylized effect on this, okay? So what I'll do is go here and let's see, I hit a hotkey. I'll take my damage tool and I add it in here. Now the damage tool allows me to do things like make it look like it's broken up or blotches. So I turn on my blotches. I come and I add my blotches, move in here, and then I go and select this. And I also have a bunch of presets. Maybe I want to have that bad VTR look to it. So now I have my bad VTR look. So there's tons of presets you can use, okay? But more importantly, this is that whole workflow. If I want to take this tool, I can take it out of here and say, you know what, just put that on the background. So now it's just going to be on the background. So if I select my action node, you can see it's not affecting the top layer, it's only affecting the background. That's the beauty of this node-based environment, the flexibility you have of being able to reposition, reuse tools, and so on. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that because that's really not what I want to do. Now let's focus on action. Action is just one of the tools you have inside of Smoke, but it is our 3D compositor. It's going to let you do a lot of things you will never be able to do on a layer-based composite environment. And if I double-click on action, the action tools come to me on the bottom. That's the workflow. Double-click on a node, the bottom UI will change for what you need it to be. But I want you to see my media source. So what happened was, because we had 3 layers, it automatically created a back layer, my text, and it created the front layer, and it imported and brought in the masking, the keying, everything I did in my timeline has been converted for me right here. Why is that important? Well, let's go to another view here. I'll zoom back. I want to make sure you understand that it is true 3D space that we're working in, okay? And I want to start positioning these layers closer and further away from the camera so I can create a parallax effect. So if I go back to my move tool and I select my layer, which is this guy, and I start to move this in Z space. Oh, I grabbed the text. That's okay. Let me undo that. I want to grab my guy for a second. Bear with me. Select that. Okay. So now if I start moving that in Z, you can see I can reposition it. But the problem is I want to reposition it, but I don't want it to scale and get larger as it moves to the camera. So what Smoke allows you to do is go here and turn on options like on position. I want you to automatically scale my layer. So now watch what happens when I drag this in Z. When I drag it in Z. It is moving closer to the camera, but in the camera view, it never changes size because it's automatically going to scale it, okay? So the point of this, now I'm starting to separate things in true 3D space. Let's now go back to my schematic. So here we have all our elements. I have an extra camera for some reason. We'll get rid of that. So here's my text that I have, right? And I want to take that text. I want that text to move with those trees. So again, I've got an axis. Every layer you bring into action will have an axis. It's a null object or a transform tool, if you will. It allows you to position and rotate things. But I can now take that and take that into the tracker. So if I turn on scaling and I step into the tracker once again, this time I want to use these trees up here because I want to make sure the text is getting the same parallax adjustment that the tree is. So if I just click Analyze once again, you see how fast it's going to do it for me. I step back out. Now my text has been offset because of the tracking data, but that's what's okay because what's great about this inside of Smoke is I have the ability to add more axes as I want. So you have this unlimited amount of control. So this is going to be my tracking data, and this one is going to allow me to come in here and just reposition this wherever I want it to be. And I start to scrub this, and I say, I'm liking this. It's looking good. But then I stop and I think, wait a minute, I am in action. Action has full 3D capabilities such as 3D text. Why am I using flat 2D text? Let's do this. Let's go back to my node bin, and I'll bring my 3D text tool in. Now if I double click on it, I have all the parameters. I can recreate what I did with the flat 2D text, but I want it to be real 3D. So let's go and select my font. Let's also set it to the same size. It was 250. And I really want to emphasize this, so I'm going to switch over to the top view so you can see it. So it comes in as a flat 2D object, but watch this. I have 3D text. I can actually model this. And if we turn on our shading option, so you can see this, now you can tell as I rotate my text, it is true 3D text, okay? You can also go and do things like control the bevel edge. I can model this thing and adjust it. So instead of just having that flat 2D text, you have a lot more control over it. So let's go back and reset this. And I also want to make sure I take that tracking data that we already used for the flat text. I'll attach it to this text. So now it's the parent. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll go take our our other axis, and I'll just position this exactly where I want it to be. And then we're going to take this text and just hide it. So I don't want my flat 2D text. Now I have an order stack like you would in any layer-based compositor where I'll take my text, I'll drag it behind the guy, okay? Now we want to go further. I can obviously come here, select my geometry, my 3D geometry, and I can do things like change the color of it if I wanted to. You can animate all these parameters. But instead of doing that, let's actually map a material directly on this. So to do that, I want to go out to my drive, out to my desktop, so I choose New Media, and I'll take this golf club, this golf image, and bring that in. So the default is it comes in as a layer, and that's fine, but I'm just going to throw this away. All I wanted was to bring that media into action so I can use it as my material that's going to be mapped on this geometry. So with my geometry selected and my material selected, I go back to my tools. I have what's called a diffuse map. If you're familiar with 3D, you know what a diffuse map is. It just maps an image onto your 3D object. And over here, I go back to the diffuse controls. I have all these options such as I want how it wraps around it, does it mirror, does it tile, and so on. So if we zoom in the viewport, you can see the golf image is now on that. I have the control to go and scale this down to whatever size I want to really create the cool effect. So this is how we're talking about keep taking it to that next level, right? Speaking of that, I now want to start adding lights into my scene. So let's go to the top view because I really like showing this in the top view. I go over to my node bin. You can see that I have my light right here. I take my light and I drag it in. You can see just how interactive this all is. So I'm manipulating my light in true 3D space, and it's affecting all the different elements inside my scene like it would in the real world. Let's take this light, move it over here, and I can go to my object control. I can raise it up a little bit. I want to use this light kind of like as the main light for everything. Now I want to add another light in the scene. So this light we're going to use as a lens flare. So I go over to my node bin. I go get my light once again. I drag it in, and again, you can see how that alone is pretty cool. But I'll position it over here. Let's drag it up here by the A or something like that. Then what we do is we go to our tool bin, and I come in here, I find my lens flare, I drag my lens flare in, and now I've created a true volumetric 3D lens flare. And also, notice that it respects the 3D object. It respects the alpha information of all your layers. So this is all happening in true 3D space. I have full control over this lens flare. And if we step back over to our schematic, you can see exactly what that lens flare has allowed me to do. It comes in and it has all these different parameters. You can totally customize the lens flares. There's tons of presets, but if I want to take this iris and make the iris be stronger or whatever, every attribute is customizable to you. So now we've got this really cool effect, right? I can keyframe it. I turn on auto key. I make the adjustment where I want it to be for the first frame, go to the last frame, and we take this and we move it across, something like that. Now let's go back. Oh, I just noticed it's a bug. This thing keeps shifting my text. There we go. Okay. So now we go back to our timeline. The benefit of this is I'm still in my timeline. Remember that. So here I have this new object that was created for me inside the timeline. That is what I just created in action. Your client walks in and says, you know, I like it. It's really good, but something just needs to be changed. So what's great about Smoke is I can just take this clip, make a duplicate copy of it. Now I have two versions of it. So now I can say, okay, let's go back into action to make the adjustment. Maybe they don't like the bright light that I had. They wanted it darker. So I select this light and I say hide that. Now I've created a totally different scene. So now I go back again to my timeline, and there we have it. We now have these two. Did I not click on that? There we go. Now we have the two versions. The point of this part is you don't have to jump to all these different applications to make those changes. I'm staying right in my timeline. I have a full node-based environment that I can work with. This is why we're saying Smoke is changing everything. No longer this whole 5 programs to do one thing. You got it all in one application.